Hey everyone, welcome to the Chilling Hour, where the stories never let you sleep. My name is Daniel Mercer. I am 34 years old, and what you are about to hear happened to me on a rainy night in the fall of 2018. I've told this story to police officers, therapists, and my own family, and every time I tell it, my hands still shake. I wish I could say this was just a story I made up to scare people. I wish I could say that, but I can't, because I lived through it. And something from that night still follows me when the rain comes down hard enough. I grew up in a small town in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where people wave at you even if they don't know your name. Old Victorian houses, cracked sidewalks, a diner that closes at 9 p.m., and a long stretch of forest at the edge of town that everyone avoids after dark. When I was a kid, adults used to tell us not to go near Miller's Creek, especially when it rained. They never explained why. They just said, bad things happen there in storms. I didn't believe any of that by the time I turned 34. At least, not until the night it happened. I was working as a freelance photographer back then, struggling to pay rent after my divorce. I'd taken a last-minute job shooting photos of an abandoned covered bridge near Miller's Creek. A local historian wanted images for a small exhibit about forgotten American landmarks. It sounded harmless, and the pay was decent. The forecast mentioned rain, but I'd shot in worse conditions before. By the time I left my apartment, the sky was already the color of wet concrete. Thick clouds pressed down low, and the air felt heavy, like the town was holding its breath. Rain started as a light drizzle, tapping gently against my windshield, and I told myself I'd be in and out within an hour. The road to the bridge was narrow and poorly lit. Tall trees leaned inward from both sides, their branches clawing at each other above the road. As the rain picked up, my headlights reflected off the slick asphalt, creating the illusion that the road was moving beneath me. My phone lost signal about 5 minutes in. That should have been my first warning. When I finally reached the dirt pull-off near Miller's Creek, the rain had turned into a steady downpour. The kind that soaks through your clothes in seconds and muffles sound until the world feels far away. I parked, grabbed my camera bag, and stepped out into the rain. The creek was swollen from days of storms, roaring louder than I expected. The covered bridge stood a few yards away, dark and hunched like something trying to hide. Its wooden boards were blackened with age, and the roof sagged slightly in the middle. Someone had nailed a sign nearby that read, "No trespassing," but it was half-rotted and barely hanging on. I remember thinking how quiet everything felt despite the rain. No insects, no distant traffic, no wind, just water and the creek. As I stepped closer to the bridge, I noticed something that made me stop. There were footprints in the mud, bare footprints. They were fresh, filling slowly with rainwater. I laughed nervously to myself and told myself it was probably kids messing around earlier. Still, something about the size bothered me. They were too small, child-sized. I set up my tripod near the entrance and began taking photos, adjusting the exposure to capture the way the rain streaked through the darkness. Every click of the shutter echoed inside the bridge, sounding louder than it should have. With each step I took inside, the temperature dropped. My breath fogged in front of me, even though it was early October. About halfway across the bridge, I heard it. A voice. At first, it was so faint I thought it was the creek. But then it happened again. A soft, broken whisper that sounded like someone struggling to speak over the rain. "Help! Me!" I froze. "Hello!" I called out, my voice shaky. "Is someone there?" The whisper came again, closer this time. "It's cold." I shined my flashlight down the length of the bridge. The beam cut through the darkness but revealed nothing except wet wooden planks and shadows that stretched and twisted with the movement of the light. My heart started pounding. I told myself someone could be hurt, maybe a homeless person or a lost kid. Against my better judgment, I walked forward, calling out that I was there to help. That's when the smell hit me. Rotting leaves mixed with something sour and metallic, like old blood. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and then steadied again. In that brief moment of darkness, I heard footsteps behind me, bare feet slapping against wet wood. I spun around, nearly dropping my camera. There was no one there, but the footprints were appearing on the bridge floor, one by one, as if something invisible was walking toward me. Each step made a soft, wet sound. I backed away, my spine pressed against the wooden wall. "Stop," I whispered. I don't know why I whispered. Fear does strange things to your voice. The footsteps stopped inches from me. Then I felt it. A cold pressure against my chest, like icy fingers pushing through my jacket and into my skin. My breath caught in my throat and my flashlight went out completely. In the darkness, I heard a child crying. Not loudly, quietly, like they were trying not to be heard. Images flooded my mind that weren't mine. A little girl in a white dress, soaked and muddy, her hair plastered to her face. An older wooden bridge, newer than this one, but standing in the same place. Adults yelling. Rain pouring down so hard it hurt. The sound of something heavy hitting the water. I screamed and dropped to my knees. When the flashlight came back on, the bridge was empty again. But something was different. The rain wasn't just outside anymore. Water was dripping from the ceiling inside the bridge, running down the walls like the structure itself was bleeding. At the far end of the bridge, I saw her. She stood just outside the exit, barefoot in the mud. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and her eyes were dark hollows filled with rainwater. Her mouth hung open slightly, as if she were still trying to breathe after being underwater too long. "Why didn't you help me?" she asked. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. She took a step closer, and I noticed her neck. There were deep purple marks around it, like handprints. Bruises bloomed across her arms, and one leg bent at an unnatural angle. "I was scared," she said, tilting her head. "They said it was an accident." But I screamed. The bridge began to shake. The sound of rushing water grew deafening, and the walls seemed to close in. I felt the planks beneath me soften, like wet cardboard. "I didn't know," I finally managed to choke out. "I didn't know." She smiled then. Not a happy smile, a broken one. "No one ever knows," she said. Suddenly, hands grabbed my ankles from beneath the planks. Cold, slick hands pulling me down. I kicked and screamed, clawing at the wood as water surged up around me. Faces appeared in the water below, men, women, children, all pale, all staring, all silently accusing. The little girl's voice echoed around me. "It's raining. It's always raining." I don't remember how I got out. The next thing I knew, I was lying in the mud outside the bridge, choking and vomiting creek water. My camera was shattered beside me. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the bridge stood quiet and still, as if nothing had happened. Police found me an hour later after a hiker reported a car abandoned near Miller's Creek. They said I was hypothermic and delirious. When I told them what I saw, they exchanged looks but didn't laugh. One of the older officers pulled me aside before I was taken to the hospital. He asked me, very quietly, if I'd seen a little girl. I nodded. He told me that in 1956, a 7-year-old girl named Emily Carter died near Miller's Creek on a stormy night. Her parents claimed she fell into the water by accident while crossing an old bridge. But rumors spread. Neighbors talked about shouting, about bruises seen days earlier. The case was closed. No charges, no justice. Since that night, people reported hearing a child crying whenever it rained hard near the creek. A few claimed they saw footprints appearing in the mud with no one around. Most people just avoided the place. I moved out of town 2 months later. I don't go near bridges anymore. I don't shoot photos in the rain. But it doesn't matter. On certain nights, when the rain is heavy and the air turns cold, I hear wet footsteps in my hallway. I wake up with the smell of creek water in my nose and mud on my bedroom floor. Sometimes, when the storm is at its worst, I hear a little girl whisper from the corner of the room, asking the same question over and over again. "Why didn't you help me?" Story the end.
Story number 2.
My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 34 years old now, but this happened when I was 19, and I swear on my life that every word of this is true as I remember it. I've told this story to police, to therapists, and to my own wife, and I still wake up some nights hearing the rain the same way it sounded back then. I grew up in a small American town in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone knows your last name before they know your face. Old clapboard houses, a single diner open past midnight, and woods that start right where the last streetlight ends. Rain was common there, especially in fall, and people joked that the sky never fully cleared. That night, the rain didn't joke. It warned. It was October 17th, 2010. My parents had driven 3 hours to Ohio for my aunt's funeral, and I stayed behind because of a college midterm and because someone needed to watch the house. I didn't mind. I liked being alone back then. I thought it made me brave. By evening, the rain had already been falling for hours, not the gentle kind. This was hard, cold rain that slapped the windows and ran down the glass like fingers. Wind shoved the trees so hard they creaked. Our house sat at the edge of town, backed up against a stretch of forest that locals avoided after dark. People said it used to be farmland before a family vanished there in the 1930s. I never believed that stuff, at least not before that night. I remember making myself canned chili around 8:30 p.m. The power flickered twice while it heated, and I joked out loud saying, "Don't you dare," like the house could hear me. When the lights held, I relaxed. I ate on the couch with the TV on low, the sound of rain louder than whatever was playing. Around 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Mom, rain getting bad there?" Me, "Yeah, but I'm good." House still standing. "Mom, lock all the doors. We'll be back tomorrow." I did exactly that. Front door, back door, basement door. I checked the windows too, mostly out of habit. Everything was shut tight. The rain had picked up again, hammering the roof so hard it sounded like footsteps above me. By 9:40 p.m., the power went out. Not a flicker this time. Just gone. The TV cut to black, the refrigerator died mid-hum, and the house fell into a heavy silence broken only by the rain and the wind. I grabbed my phone for light and went to find the flashlight drawer in the kitchen. I found 2 working ones and set one on the coffee table. I remember thinking how dark the corners of the house looked, even with the flashlight on. Shadows didn't behave right. They seemed thicker, like they were pooling instead of lying flat. At 10:03 p.m., I heard the first knock. It came from the front door. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not soft, just firm enough to be intentional. I froze. Nobody ever came to our house that late, especially in weather like that. I stood there listening, heart pounding, rain roaring outside. I told myself it was probably a branch, or the wind, or something loose hitting the porch. Then it happened again. 3 knocks. I walked toward the door, every step feeling louder than it should have. I didn't open it. I leaned close and called out. Me, "Hello?" No answer, just rain. I checked my phone, no signal. The storm had knocked out the tower too. I was about to step away when something slid across the porch, scraping softly, like wet fabric dragged over wood. I flinched back and shined the flashlight through the peephole. At first, I saw nothing but darkness and rain. Then, a face leaned into view. It wasn't normal. The skin was pale in a way that didn't look alive, stretched too tight over sharp cheekbones. The eyes were open too wide, whites showing all around, and they weren't looking at the peephole. They were looking past it, straight through the door, like they already knew where I stood. The mouth moved. I couldn't hear it through the door, but I could read the words. "Let me in." I stumbled backward, almost dropping the flashlight. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. I whispered to myself that it was a prank. Someone from town messing with me. That had to be it. Then the thing knocked again. Not with its hand, with its head. The sound was dull and wet, repeated again and again, faster each time. I screamed and ran to the kitchen, grabbing the biggest knife from the block. I stood there shaking, listening to the door being hit like it was nothing more than thin cardboard. Suddenly, it stopped. Silence crashed down so fast it hurt my ears. Even the rain seemed to fade for a moment. Then I heard footsteps. Inside the house. Slow, dragging steps coming from the hallway that led to the basement door. I knew I had locked it. I knew I had. I crept toward the hallway, flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam landed on the basement door and my stomach dropped. It was open. Water pooled on the floor beneath it, rainwater, like something had tracked it inside. From the darkness below, a voice spoke. Not loud, not angry, just tired. Voice, "Daniel, you shouldn't have answered." I dropped the knife and ran. I bolted up the stairs to my bedroom, slammed the door, and shoved my dresser in front of it. I could hear movement in the hallway now, slow and deliberate, water dripping with every step. The smell hit me next, damp earth and rot, like an open grave after rain. Something scratched at my door. Fingernails. Long and careful. Voice, "You saw me. That means you're invited." I screamed for my parents, knowing they weren't there, knowing it wouldn't help. The scratching turned into pushing. The door bowed inward, wood creaking, hinges whining. Then lightning flashed. For a split second, my room lit up bright as day, and in that instant, I saw my reflection in the mirror across the room. Except it wasn't just me. Standing behind me, inches from my back, was the same pale figure from the porch, rainwater pouring off its hair onto my carpet, eyes locked onto mine through the glass. I spun around, swinging blindly, and hit nothing but air. The room was empty. The door stopped shaking. The rain outside returned, louder than ever. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. I stayed there all night, back against the wall, eyes fixed on the door, flashlight clenched in my fist until my hand went numb. Sometime near dawn, the rain finally slowed. When the sun came up, the power came back on like nothing had happened. My parents pulled into the driveway an hour later. I ran outside barefoot, crying, trying to explain everything at once. Dad went inside with a baseball bat. Mom followed, calling my name over and over. They found the front door soaked but locked. The basement door was open. Just like I said, muddy footprints leading up the steps and stopping in the middle of the kitchen. No prints led away. The police said someone probably broke in during the storm and messed with me. They said stress and fear can make the mind do powerful things. They never explained the footprints, or the deep cracks in my bedroom door, shaped like fingers pressing from the other side. We sold the house 6 months later. I moved away for college and never went back to that town. I avoid the rain now. When storms roll in, my chest tightens and I feel watched. Sometimes, when the rain is heavy enough, I hear 3 slow knocks, spaced just right, coming from inside my walls. And sometimes, in the reflection of dark windows, I see someone standing behind me, soaked to the bone, smiling like they're still waiting to be let in. Story the end.